Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 189, cover dated January 1985. No cover caption here, but we have three female characters in battle against each other. Rachel Summers here, as it turns out, in a new JRJR design costume, imitative of her mother's Phoenix costume in some regards. Magma, that's Amara Aquila from New Mutants. She had her first appearance in New Mutants 7 to 11, as did the soul vampire Selene, who's pictured here in the Black Queen outfit first worn by Jean Grey as Black Queen of the Hellfire Club. So let's open this one up to the splash page here. And we have a very interesting drawing of the Statue of Liberty, and here on tour in the head part of the statue, what is it, a tiara? We have Rachel Summers and Amara Aquila, and the narrative caption here from Claremont makes the point: both are mutants, and that fundamental fact rules their existence more and more. It marks them as outcasts. More and more they and their fellow students at Professor Charles Xavier's school for gifted youngsters find themselves feared and hated by the world they've sworn to protect. So they're enjoying the view of New York, and turn the page and we shall see a great double page half spread of New York from the vantage point looking at the Statue of Liberty towards the south of the island. And we've got the Twin Towers there, and a jet flying over the cityscape as well. That's great work by John Romita Jr. And as it turns out, not Dan Green inking on this issue, but let's take a look at the credits here. Chris Claremont, writer as ever. John Romita Jr. getting credited as penciler, that's full pencils, and Steve Leialoha as guest inker. So slightly different style of inking on Romita Jr.'s pencils in this issue. I like it. You tell me what you think. Leialoha leaves the art a little bit more open for colour, so Glynis Wine's colours really shine in this issue. And then the final part of the creative team is Tom Orzechowski, letterer as ever. And we learn a little bit more about Rachel's past in the opening pages of this issue, where she's thinking back to her memories of Manhattan. In her mind's eyes, she sees Lower Manhattan burning. The Twin Towers of the World Trade Center lie in ruins. Thousands are dead, many more injured. Rachel's a telepath. Even though she's over a mile away aboard a Navy hydrofoil, she hears their screams, feels their pain and their deaths. For once, she's grateful for the drugs that dull her wits. Otherwise, the anguish would have probably driven her mad. And then we've got this guy pulling over this character in almost a full body costume. Over here, Muty, we've got work for you. So we're learning about what Rachel was doing in the future, in the dystopian future, when she survived the assault, that was the sole survivor of the assault on the X-Mansion. One other little point to note here is you see that there's scaffolding around the Statue of Liberty. So apparently in 1984 to 1986, there was restoration work done on the Statue of Liberty. So this is true to life, and I wonder, did Romita Jr. Draw this, sketch it from life, and then work it up into the art for the issue? Because of course Romita Jr. Lived in Brooklyn at the time and still does. So here we get to see Rachel in her hound costume with the tattoos, and in the issue itself they're referred to as Maori tattoos in the narrative captions to the issue. So we see that she's used to hunt and point to the mutants aboard their life raft, and then they're basically shot to pieces in the water. She feels no remorse, she isn't allowed to, but a piece of her soul dies with them as they're machine gunned down. And then her handler says, "Good girl, Red, I'm proud of you." She's been treated like a dog, and she thinks to herself, in the present, so many died because of me. And she starts to weep, so Amara catches that. Rachel says she's just got a speck in her eye, and Amara knows that she's lying and she's hiding something. But she thinks she wants to help, but not at the moment. So they're pointing to a large vessel upriver, which is the passenger ship that, as it turns out, Storm Aurora is boarding in order to go to Africa. So she's decided to leave her position as leader of the X-Men and go to Africa to search into her roots, because she's lost her powers since issue 185, and she feels like she can't continue as leader in the field for the X-Men. So she says here, they're talking here about the fact that Kitty Pryde and Wolverine are in Japan, because that's in relation to the miniseries that was being published at the time. So they're not in New York, and they're not there to say goodbye as a result of that. Here's Nightcrawler popping a bottle of champagne. And since issue 186, it seems Storm has gotten a taste for champagne. She tasted it for the first time in Forge's penthouse in Eagle Plaza when they were romancing before the fallout. And when Storm learned that it was his tech and work for the government that led to the loss of her powers. So Storm emotionally hugs goodbye to her fellow X-Men as the announcement is made, attention please all ashore that's going ashore. And she asks Kurt to send her love to Kitty in particular. And then we switch back to Rachel and Amara, who've exited the Statue of Liberty, and they're down passing the South Street Seaport in Lower Manhattan. And they're just seeing the sights and contemplating going shopping. And Rachel's talking about how there's an exhibit at the Met that she thinks Amara will love. So they're just having a fun day out in Manhattan. Of course, these are new characters. They've only been introduced into the books in recent months, so they're not there for this emotional farewell to Storm. It wouldn't make sense. And then we pick up with this guy that we saw at the end of the previous issue, Jaime Rodriguez. And he found this necklace, this mysterious necklace, and these guys, his colleagues, were trying to steal it out of his locker, and he fights them off. And the thing about this necklace is it is enchanted, and it speaks to him. I summoned, they answered, as will all with greed and murder in their hearts, but 'twas thou who saved me, Jaime Rodriguez. Thou art my favoured one. Yield me thy soul, so small a price for so great a gift, and the world will be thine. But Jaime rejects the offer, but he thinks he's got to get rid of that necklace and get rid of it tonight. And here's the thing, he's there in New York. Why not go to the Fantastic Four? Why not go to the Avengers? Why not go to Doctor Strange? I mean, Doctor Strange will get involved in what goes on with the necklace soon enough, but maybe he's just independent-minded and he wants to deal with it himself. But if it was me, I'd go straight to the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, if I had a talking necklace like that in my locker. Anyway, we pick up at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. That's a great establishing shot of it by Romita Jr. Again, I'm just fascinated as regards whether he was out there with his sketchbook, drawing from life, and then going and using the resulting sketches for composing his comics pages, because he could do it. On the basis of the fact that he was living there in New York City at the time. So Amara's delighted with the specific exhibition that's on at the Met at the time. It's not the Goya she's interested in, but rather this recreation of a Roman palace. So Amara is from this part of the South America called Nova Roma, and we get the kind of little story about it here, where her ancestors left Italy around the time of Gaius Julius Caesar, because they didn't like the way that things were going with the end of the Roman Republic. And Rachel here confirms that the old Republic died with Caesar's assassination. His adopted son Octavian became Rome's first emperor, Augustus Caesar. And Amara says, my ancestors feared such an outcome. That's why they fled Italy. So they were Roman Republicans, and they set up their new republic in South America. And she says here, Nova Roma would have suffered a similar fate. My father would have died. My own fate would have been far worse. But the New Mutant saved the day, and that's specifically in issues 9 to 11 of New Mutant. So Claremont, the writer of both comics, tying together continuity between them, and also, introducing this character, Amara Aquila, for readers of Uncanny X-Men, maybe to intrigue them and maybe get them to pick up New Mutants as well, which wasn't selling in the same numbers as Uncanny X-Men at the time. In any case, Rachel, back to the story, Rachel gets a psi flash, a familiar psi flash, and she races out of the Met onto the street, and she sees a limo passing by, and she pegs the familiar psychic imprint or pattern to the back of the limo. She's still relaxed. I sense no alarm. Rachel thinks, the instant I recognized her, I put a tight lock on my own psi patterns. I don't think she spotted me. So Amara comes along asking for explanation, and Rachel reads her mind, saying, you know her too, I can see the image of her face in your mind, but that really irks and annoys. Amara tells her, don't do that again. Rachel apologizes, and basically Amara says, Selene, the demon huntress, killed my mother. If that is truly her, then her life is mine. And here she is in deep shadow in the back of the limo. And where is that limo going? Well, it pulls in a few blocks further on into the drive of an elegant, venerable mansion. And if you pay attention there, it's got the devices of the Hellfire Club. So that's where the limo's pulling in on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. So the two girls follow surreptitiously, and they enter through the servants' entrance. Rachel using her psi powers and also skills that she was taught by Storm in the future in terms of burglary to get into the Hellfire Club. And then they get the idea to dress in the servants' uniforms, these French-made uniforms. But this gives Rachel pause. It's Amara's idea. It gives Rachel pause because she thinks, a collar. I swore I'd never wear one again. And Amara says, Rachel, hurry up, get changed. And she thinks privately here, it's easy for you to pretend to be a slave, Amara. You've never been one. So again, interesting, revelation of Rachel's character in this story, and emerging from the interesting pairing of Rachel and Amara, the same age, one from a kind of like an ancient past that survived into the present, and another one from the future, dystopian future, that's come back to the present. So there they are, feeling ridiculous in their French maids' uniforms, and then the butler asks them to get to work. So he obviously isn't concerned that he's never seen them before. And then we switch at the same moment in secret catacombs buried beneath the mansion. We have Lady Selene, all dressed up in Jean Grey's old Black Queen costume, and introducing herself, or rather Friedrich von Rome introducing her as Lady Selene. And Shaw, the Black King, is skeptical. He says, really, I grant you, von Rome, your protege certainly looks the part, but the title of Black Queen is a singular honour. It must be earned. So, how will Selene show that she's worthy of the title? Well, she uses her power, her mutant power, and it's explained, of course, that she has absolute control over all forms of inorganic matter. And Shaw here thinks to himself, I absorb my strength from the kinetic energy of blows struck against me. The harder I'm hit, the more powerful I become. But Selene's was a passive attack, the kind most likely to defeat me. Was it a lucky coincidence, or does she know my weakness? Whichever, she's made her intentions plain. So always the intriguing going on at the higher level, the inner circle of the Hellfire Club. And because, of course, they're all interested in power. That's what the inner circle is formed to pursue, the accruing of power, real power. This is interesting. I think this might be, is it the only comic I have? Like, I bought this as a back issue, not off the stands in the day. And these inserts, these Mark Jewelers inserts, are indicative of the fact that this comic was originally sold on a US Army base. So these inserts, they're jewelry, rings, and so on and so forth, specifically marketed to US forces, Navy, Air Force, Army, Marines, Army Airborne, etc., etc. So that's interesting. Whoever was the original owner of this comic was a member of the US Armed Forces. Anyway, back to the story. Selene has conceived a gesture of fealty and respect, and so it appears like she vanishes. And Tessa here is asked by Shaw whether Selene is a teleporter, and Tessa responds, "No, Sebastian. She created a momentary trance effect, instant transitory hypnosis, then slipped away before we recovered our wits." So Tessa asks him, "Will you accept her as Black Queen?" And he says, "Under the circumstances, Tessa, I fear I've little alternative." So then we pick up with Rachel leaving one of the rooms in the Hellfire Club, and she says, "Yes, sir, thank you, sir." Not a word. Rachel Summers, not one bloody sound till the doors close behind you, she thinks. And then she just has this big burst of laughter. "Oh my goodness," she thinks. "Gracious, not so loud, they'll hear. I can't hold it, hurts. How could they? I never dreamed it looked so silly, and their thoughts, wait till I tell." So this is Claremont being very, how shall I put it, sly about some of the kinky goings on at the Hellfire Club, and Rachel indicating how ludicrous and funny it is by her thoughts here. And then who's this silhouette sneaking up behind her? Well, it looks like it's Selene, but Rachel's ready for her this time. She says, "You ambushed me the first time we met back in Uncanny X-Men 183. That'll never happen again." So she hits her with a Psybolt, comes up to her as she's slammed into the wall, and then suddenly she sees it wasn't Selene at all, it was Amara. And Selene comes up right behind her and grabs her by the throat and lifts her right up, and then takes control of her and Amara too, and gives them with these chains around their necks to Shaw. And Tessa thinks that the redhead, her resemblance to Jean Grey is uncanny. Are they related? Does she possess the power of Phoenix? Take the gift, Sebastian, she thinks. Use it to destroy Selene. So Tessa is Sebastian Shaw's, she is his, to use the kind of Italian expression, consigliere, like his counselor, advisor. It's an interesting position. There's an implication that there may be something else between them, but perhaps not. But she's certainly his counsel. So then we have this interesting layout here by Romita Jr., or we get into Rachel's mind. We see by the blank eyes that she is overtly in the control, body and soul, of Selene, but deep, deep down in her mind, she's free, because she cries out here, "No, I'll never be a slave, never. Fantasy or not, I don't care. I deny this, I deny you." So here we get a look at this Phoenix-inspired costume, Dark Phoenix-inspired costume by Romita Jr., though we don't see it again, that he comes up for Rachel. And she develops a plan here. Amara's her prisoner too, and I'll bet in the same shape I was. I never broke the Psylink I established back at the museum. Can I shift my consciousness into her skull without tripping Selene's alarms? Worth a shot anyway, she thinks. I've got zip to lose. So then she enters Amara's mind, psyche, and she sees Amara worshipping a statue of Selene. And Amara reacts badly to Rachel's arrival in her psyche. Rachel realizes that Amara doesn't recognize her, that Selene's influence over Amara is a lot stronger than it was over her. So she grabs Amara and induces Amara to use her mutant powers. Now this is all in a kind of a psychic landscape, and as she uses her powers and turns into magma, then she gets her own mind back. And she shouts here, "You dare lay hands on a daughter of Rome? Witch, you dare lay claim to my thoughts, my very soul? I warned you what would happen." And so she attacks the statue of Selene, and Rachel realizes that she's freed her psychically. So then, back in the present, Amara uses her magma powers to attack Selene. And meanwhile, The whole house is shaking. And Rachel thinks the quake effects are even worse in reality than they were in Amy's mind. I didn't expect this because of us innocent people may be hurt, even killed. So she psychically calls out to Professor X, who is of course there at the southern tip of Manhattan, so relatively speaking not too far away. And Selene fights back and uses her mutant power or control over inanimate matter to grab both Magma and Rachel. And then who teleports in except for Nightcrawler, and he grabs Selene, and then bursting through the wall and door respectively comes Colossus and Rogue. And Rogue says, "Looks like we have arrived in the nick of time, Colossus, as usual," because that is something that they have been doing of late, slamming through walls and doors in the nick of time, and they'll continue to do so. And then Professor X himself arrives in his astral form and tells Magma to back down, because Magma wants revenge for Selene's murder of her mother. She says, "I want her," and Professor X says, "No, Amara, you will do nothing without my leave." And he explains here, "I appreciate your feelings towards her, child, but my students do not kill. If you would remain with us, you must accept that." And she does quietly. She says, "Yes, sir." And that's interesting because when Professor X is gone, when he's gone with Lilandra in a year's time, Rachel goes after Selene and goes after her to kill her. But the professor's gone. And so it will fall to someone else to rebuke her for that decision. So here we have an interesting interview between the professor and Shaw. Shaw explains, "Abducting your brats wasn't my idea, Charles." And Rachel responds angrily, "Who you calling brats, chump?" And I always think about Rachel, and I've said it before in other videos, that I think while Claremont is clear that Rachel is definitely the daughter of Jean Grey, I think he was opening up some possibility that her father may not have been Scott Summers, may not have been Cyclops, and may have been, in fact, Logan, may have been Wolverine. And some of that comes out with her hot temper that she has here, even in the beginning. So, in any case, back to the professor and Shaw's conversation. Shaw says the Hellfire Club has no quarrel with them or you at the moment. If you wish to leave, that's fine with me. So there'll be no big fight between the X-Men and Shaw and the other members of the Hellfire Club. So soon in the mansion's foyer, after various explanations, we have the professors arrive physically. And this is interesting. Rachel, in embarrassment at the French maids' uniforms, uses her telekinesis to change everybody's costumes into civilian clothes. And but it takes a lot out of her telekinetically transforming the clothes like this. So Colossus is there to catch her. They leave the Hellfire Club. Outside is carnage because of the quakes that Magma set off using her power. And she says here, all this destruction, and for what? Selene yet lives, my mother remains unavenged. That accursed demon at liberty to spread her evil across your land as she did mine. And Rachel says, from what the prof said to Mr. Shaw, I bet it'll be a long time before she steps out of line again. And when she does, we'll be waiting and ready to nail her once and for all. And that is the kind of expression that, that's the phraseology of Wolverine. Again, I feel personally that Claremont was seeding the idea that Rachel, while Jean Grey's daughter, may not have been Scott Summers' son. Just before we move on, got to point out here the notorious feature of Marvel Hunk of the Month, and John Romita Jr., our artist on this issue, featuring as the first Hunk of the Month, with others mentioned as potential follow-ups: Bill Sienkiewicz, Carl Potts, maybe to come in subsequent months, but I don't believe there was anyone else. But interesting that readers at the time would get a glimpse of what the artist looked like, what John Romita Jr. looked like back then, but embarrassing from the vantage point of 2023, eh? So, and then we have our epilogue here. Jaime Rodriguez, he is, it's 1985, 1984, 1985, and he's watching the news on his Watchman, his portable TV. And who's this, or whose silhouette or shadow is this coming down the stairs into the subway station? This guy doesn't look like he's up to any good. Jaime is listening to a newscast about Dazzler the movie, and we can see here the signs of the prejudice against mutants in the Marvel Universe with the graffiti across the movie poster, Mutie Die. And while he's listening with the earbuds in to the news broadcast, the guy comes up behind him, stabs him in the back. Okay, so it's like late 84 or early 85 New York. That's the kind of thing that could have happened then. It is horrific in its own way. And the guy here is going for the necklace. So he finds it, thinks it's his lucky day. This piece looks for real. And then it goes on fire and burns him. And then the last piece of dialogue here, the voice that was speaking earlier, free at last. Kulan Gath is free. After countless centuries, my destiny is at hand to make this world forever mine. Next, an age undreamed of. Next issue, New York as you've never seen it, in the grip of a monstrous, ancient, transcendent evil, with heroes as helpless as ordinary citizens, because they don't know they're heroes anymore. In 30 days, the X-Men, the Avengers, and a certain notorious, amazing, spectacular, friendly neighborhood web-slinging wall crawler find themselves trapped in an age undreamed of. So pretty good setup for the next storyline there. And then, of course, the letters. They're not about any specific issues, really. So there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Uncanny X-Men 189. If you did, please like the video on YouTube. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.